It is going to be a big yet challenging week for the Trump administration, including plans for the president to unveil his tax reform plan this week. Saturday will mark the president's 100th day in office, and for some, it's very symbolic, using those 100 days as a benchmark for his performance. In Washington, the White House is trying to manage expectations ahead of the milestone.
He's also going to try to convince people that even if he hasn't gotten over the finish line on some of these big objectives, he's made a lot of progress toward that goal.
Advisors say to expect a broad outline on tax cuts from the president Wednesday, but the administration's also going to have to jump a legislative hurdle before they do that. Speaker Paul Ryan told House Republicans yesterday their top priority is funding the government before a potential shutdown Saturday, the same day marking the president's 100th day in office.
Here is a look at the president's approval ratings ahead of that 100-day mark. A poll from NBC News and the Wall Street Journal put his rating at 40%. That's a 4-point dip from February. President Trump has the lowest job approval rating for a new president at the 100-day stage in the history of the poll. At this point in their presidencies, Barack Obama's approval rating was 61%, George W. Bush had 56%, and Bill Clinton sat at 52. A bright spot in the poll for President Trump is on the conflict in Syria. 62% of Americans say they support the administration's military response to chemical attacks in that country.
Vice President Mike Pence got a little bit of a breather down under as he and his family were touring Sydney's Taronga Zoo, but he was there for business. His mission in Australia was to soothe any lingering hurt from a tense telephone conversation between the president and the prime minister back in January. All of this is following a visit with several leaders in Asia, where Pence was reassuring allies the U.S. will stand by them under the new administration, as well as diving into the international crisis. Most notable was in North Korea.
China's foreign minister reiterated his country's stance on the conflict in Korea today. They want North Korea to stop working on nuclear weapons. He says that eliminating nuclear weapons in Pyongyang is key to achieving peace on the peninsula. He made those remarks in Athens during a joint press conference with the Greek foreign minister.
Well, Swedish officials are saying North Korea has detained a U.S. citizen. Tony Kim was detained yesterday as he was trying to leave the country, but so far it's not clear why. We do know that he was a professor who was also involved in programs and aid programs in North Korea. The Swedish embassy confirmed the detention, and that's because it handles consular affairs for the U.S. That's because there's no official diplomatic relationship between America and North Korea. The State Department has said it's aware of the reports of an American being detained. There are now a total of 3 Americans being held in North Korea.
The votes have been counted in France's presidential election. Independent candidate Emmanuel Macron and right-wing Marine Le Pen will advance to a runoff. With more than 47 million eligible voters and 11 candidates, it was being called one of the most unpredictable elections in generations. This is the first time in French history that a mainstream candidate will not be on the ballot. The runoff election will be on May 7th.
And while the French were awaiting the final results of their election, another ballot is unfolding in Italy. It's a hilltop village there that has declared itself an independent country and is casting ballots for a new prince today. Residents in Saborga pay Italian taxes. They vote in the country's elections, but still have their own flag, currency, and royal family. Now, the incumbent, Prince Mingato, claimed victory over an unlikely opponent who's a local British DJ. An American painter who lives in Saborga weighed in on the town's search for a ruler.
I feel like Alice, and I fell down the rabbit hole, and I ended up in this beautiful place with this tongue-in-cheek prince thing.
Well, Prince Menegado says he still prefers to go by his tremendousness.
What? Okay. All right. A national day of mourning was declared in Afghanistan today. At least 140 people were killed in an attack on an Afghan military base on Friday. Some were killed as they were praying in a mosque. Taliban militants wore army uniforms as they rushed the military compound in northern Afghanistan. None of those attackers survived.
Fighting continues in Mosul today, where Iraqi troops fired their guns from rooftops while at least one airstrike hit an ISIS position. It's been slow advance for troops there, and that's because they're having to move on a street-by-street basis with as many as 500,000 people who are still in the city. Iraqi forces say they have about half of the city under control. And a volunteer firefighter's quick action saved the life of a little girl who fell out of a moving bus in Arkansas. You're looking at the dash cam video that shows the white bus and the back door that eventually swings open, and the child you see there who fell out. The bus driver didn't notice, but Ryan Champoli, who is a volunteer firefighter, immediately stopped his car to run to this little girl, saying it took 15 minutes for the bus driver to come back. The girl's parents say she suffered a broken jaw and will need surgery.
A World War II vet got to cross a special item off his bucket list, and his wife was there to make the day even more special. Reporter Kent Erdahl has that story.
Minnesota Twins don't normally call up 90-year-old cane-aided rookie pitchers to the big leagues, which is why Emery Erickson
here I am.
is as surprised as anyone to be here, and that is saying something.
I was totally blown away. I had no idea that he wanted to do this.
But when Jan Miller heard throwing out the first pitch
Oh boy.
was at the top of her dad's bucket list, she knew he had the right resume.
He gives and gives and gives.
At just 17 years old, Emery first gave back to his country.
Tell me about your service. Where did you serve?
Navy, 2 years, Pacific.
To this day, Emery continues to give, training service dogs for the Mayo Clinic and making little libraries for his community. From the confines of the woodshop he oversees inside Covenant Village Retirement Community.
You know, it's a win-win. We're doing something worthwhile, and we're doing something we enjoy. Even though Dick is a perfectionist.
He recently took this same lighthearted approach to his own version of spring training.
I don't bend over like I used to.
And he wasn't too worried about an imperfect throw.
If I bounce the ball halfway up there, so big deal.
You see, a bad pitch has a tendency to seem pretty small when your marriage of 44 years faces one of the biggest deals imaginable.
It's probably 4 or 5 years ago when we started noticing that she wasn't remembering things the way we thought she should.
They knew that they were preparing for the day where she would have to move into memory care.
Oh, here she is.
That day took place 2 months ago when Emery suffered a heart attack due to stress associated with caring for his wife, Ruby.
So that's a change in our lives, but we're doing okay, aren't we?
I love you.
I love you too.
How's that sound?
That's just the nature of the disease, and you know, God bless her, but that's hard.
It's a very, very ugly disease. Yeah, and they call it the longest day.
But on this day,
I'm thrilled. It's wonderful.
Welcome, Emery Erickson.
a man who has given so much got the attention he deserved.
Emery, it's your pitch.
Balls and strikes are no big deal when you can share days like this.
Hey,
I was wondering where you were.
you get a kiss?
Well, they're just as cute as could be, aren't they? The 89-year-old served as a quartermaster during the war. Thank you for your service, sir. Coming up, the weather doing Coloradans a solid to wind down the weekend, but keep the rain gear handy. Danielle has the details.
And we remember the life of an actress who starred in one of the most popular American sitcoms of all time.
Actress Erin Moran, best known for her work on Happy Days, has passed away. She was 56 years old. You may have also seen her on the shows Joni Loves Chachi, The Love Boat, and Murder, She Wrote. First responders in southern Indiana responded to a call about an unresponsive woman and found Moran dead. An autopsy will shed light on what happened. She started acting in TV in movies when she was just 10 years old. Her Happy Days co-stars Henry Winkler and Ron Howard shared their condolences via Twitter this morning.
The unsolved mystery of a deadly explosion in Firestone dominated many of your thoughts this week. You also had a lot to say about the senseless vandalism of a beautiful trail and reflected on a day Coloradans vowed to never forget. Here's Kim Christensen with our 9 Listens report.
He left our bar, and that was the last job that he was ever working on.
2 brothers-in-law died this week when a home in Firestone exploded and burst into flames. The community is devastated. We live like 2 blocks away from this. Very sad. All we can do is pray for their families. Just speechless.
Seems like a growing number of bad apples, and I just hope they don't spoil the bunch.
Outrage over the news that graffiti was spray painted along rocks and trees along the trail to Hanging Lake. Hundreds of comments. I am a transplant that has been camping in Colorado since the early 70s. This infuriates me. Not all transplants disrespect our beautiful state. Many of you think big changes need to happen. I completely support initiatives to limit the number of visitors allowed at Hanging Lake. This amazing place needs to be protected. I know that adding permits and restrictions will upset people, but this place must be preserved for future generations. Also, as a former resident of Glenwood Springs, I hiked Hanging Lake many times back in the day when you could run into maybe a handful of people on the trail. I agree with many of the posts here, how ungracious people can be to ruin such a beautiful piece of land. Closed down for a while.
And we will all never forget the 13 lives stolen from this earth.
Finally, 18 years, and we still remember April 20th, 1999. Comments? I was in 8th grade in a school not far from Columbine. We were just being let out, and then we had to go back into the school. A week or two later, my father took me to Columbine to pay our respects. Never forget it. Another, I think, what would the world be if the teens were able to live their lives? A scientist, a politician, a teacher, a minister, a mom, a dad. How would they have changed our world? And the victims, survivors, staff, students, and first responders will always have a place in our hearts. A very difficult time for all of us. Prayers, love, and healing light sent out to all. Thanks for your comments, and remember 9 listens.
We want to keep hearing from you. Let us know what stories are piquing your interest, and we're welcoming all comments at KUSA@9news.com. You can give us a call or send us a message through Facebook, and as always, we look forward to hearing from you every week.
The Rockies let the San Francisco Giants know who is boss in the NL West this weekend.
And they pulled off a feat Coors Field hasn't seen in over 10 years. Rod's next with the highlights.
How about another sign that spring is here? Tulips, millions of them burst into bloom in Washington State over the past week. And people from Washington are celebrating the Skagit Tulip Festival, underway just outside of Seattle. It's meant to be a driving tour, a beautiful one at that. They rotate those flowers each year, so the color combinations you're seeing now are going to be completely different in 2018. And apparently, the wrong person is reading this story because someone I know has seen it before, right, Anusha?
I went to these tulip festivals all growing up. I grew up in the Seattle area. And they're right, every year it was different. I have so many family photos there.
Do you?
From when I'm 2, 3 years old, I can barely see my head above the flowers.
I'm sure it's beautiful.
They're so pretty. I'll have to dig them up. And
yeah, let's see them.
Yellow tulips.
There you go.
My absolute fave.
Speaking of spring,
yeah, you know what?
Colorado's delivering.
This weekend was fantastic, especially today. Nice to get out and about. As we head toward the week, we will be watching, well, a quiet beginning, maybe a few showers up in the mountains late tonight into early tomorrow morning, but that really is going to be about it. The really heavy, wet weather, that's going to push in by the middle of the week. So early tomorrow morning, 8 a.m., it's dry. We'll be looking at some sunshine around here, but not the case up in the mountains and foothills where they will be watching strong winds. Look at that tomorrow morning, 6:30, 7 a.m., 40+ mile-per-hour speeds in Nederland as well as Idaho Springs. Things weaken just a little bit by tomorrow afternoon. Once again, a day in the 70s, possibly low 80s in southeastern Colorado, a bit cooler up in the mountains. We will be watching those cooler temperatures for most of next week. 50s. Look at that, Friday.
Nice.
Cool.
yeah, exactly. That's good. That's a serious cool down.
Yep.
But the weekend doesn't look too terrible. Sunday maybe. Thanks for watching.
Maybe.
We're back at 9 and 10. Let her do the forecasting. Don't listen to me.
No, I want to see that.